Hello there everybody, welcome to The Verdict. So this week we are going to concentrate on the Breeders' Cup World Championships from Del Mar. I'm going to have a look at 7 races that took place through Friday and Saturday. It was hard to pick just the 7, for there were 14 excellent races and $31 million in prize money over the 2 days. But I think I've picked out the best, and we start on Friday with a couple of very interesting 2-year-olds. We start with the fillies. In the NetJets Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, Grade 1 over 1.5 miles a furlong on the dirt. Echo Zulu was the 11-10 favourite. A little bit weak in the market, for there was money for Hidden Connection, who was 11-4. Juju's Map was a 4-1 shot, and it was 10s and bigger the rest. And it was the favourite, who remains unbeaten, Echo Zulu, who obliged, making all of the running, jumping from the widest gate, and has got the better of Juju's Map in second place. Let's send them on their way and see how this race panned out. And essentially it was quite straightforward for this Steve Asmussen trained filly. Joel Rosario was the man on board, and he took her straight to the lead, and really the race was over at this point, for she got her own way. She was never taken on in the early stages, and she was able to dictate her own fractions out in front. Joel Rosario just staying off the rail, that became a theme over the 2 days. Jockeys didn't want to be hard against the rail where they felt it was deeper, so they tended to race in the 2-path or the 3-path away from that rail. How fast did she go? Well, we know that the first call was 23.2 seconds, so that's the first quarter mile she's gone through in 23.2. So then she's not going mad out there, she's not going really steady, but she is dictating, and it is completely and utterly uncontested. Her final time was quite good. It was 1:42.24, which we can compare with Corniche, who we're going to have a look at in a moment. He was a very good winner of the Colts version of this. So the time was quite good. She was basically on a solo time trial out there. That's why she recorded a good time. And it's her best performance. She remains unbeaten after this. She's produced a Bayer figure here. That's a speed figure produced by the Andy Bayer's organisation. 94 she got for this. Her previous best was 92. So I think we can easily say this is her best career performance. See there how she's eschewed the rail, as have other jockeys. Didn't want to be down on the deep rail, and she's run out a ready winner. Eased down in the closing stages by Rosario, who's one of the top jockeys in the United States of America. He's particularly good at Del Mar as well, and if he comes in the 3rd or 4th path down the home straight, you know that that is definitely the place to be. She's a nice filly overall. I think there's going to be a fair bit more to come from her. She's the best 2-year-old filly in the United States of America on dirt at the moment, and I think there'll be a fair bit more to come from her. They finished pretty well strung out. I'm not sure those in behind were particularly good. Juju's Map was in second place. It was a hard fought second place, but she was geared down. Rosario looking through his legs in the closing stages. She had her ears pricked for much of the race. She's won in a good time, and Steve Asmussen has got a potentially champion distaffer on his hands with Echo Zulu. So what did we see out there? Well, we saw a very nice performance from a really nice filly who remains unbeaten. She was clear by the first turn and was under very little pressure thereafter. It was very easy for her. Ears pricked down the back straight, Rosario dictating matters. Bayer figure 94 made reference to that. Her previous best was 92. This was a career best from her, but I think you can be safe in the knowledge that she's even better than that. There's more to come. I think we've got to rate her as the best 2-year-old dirt filly in the United States of America. We haven't seen anything better than her, and she might be in the distaff itself next year at the Breeders' Cup when she turns 3. The track was definitely suiting speed. It is a tight turning track that's always suited speed. It's quite a quick surface as well, and she was on the lead and she got her own way, but there's no fluke about the result whatsoever. Final time 1:42.24. It was good. That's because she got a solo time trial. She was out on her own, doing her own thing, and Rosario got it absolutely spot on. She's the best 2-year-old filly on dirt. She's Echo Zulu. When it came to the Colts version of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile on dirt, Corniche was sent off, the 13-8 favourite ahead of Command Performance, who was 3-1, and Pinehurst 5-1. It was 8s and bigger the rest, and it was Corniche who prevailed and did so in pretty good style for, perhaps controversially, the Bob Baffert team. Mike Smith on board. Bob had been under surveillance since he'd arrived at Del Mar with his Breeders' Cup runners. 24-hour surveillance. His horses had been regularly tested as well, and there was some rigorous observations done on all of his runners. It didn't seem to upset their routine, for all of them ran well, and Corniche wins this. This was a very good performance. This is a decent horse. Let's have a look at the first three and where they came from. Corniche out wide. Potentially that was something of a problem. Papa Cap was in second, and A Giant Game, jumping out of sixth, finished in third place. Mike Smith had to be aggressive from the gates. He didn't want to be posted wide. It's quite a short run to the first bend, and he had to use Corniche up in the early part of this race to establish a lead. He worked very hard. Indeed, he had to work harder than the filly had. Echo Zulu, she went through the first call, the first quarter mile, in 23.2 to establish a lead and get clear, while Corniche had to go faster. He had to go in 23.03 to establish his lead. So he had to work a bit harder in the early stages of this race, and indeed he had to work harder down the back straight as well. So if the filly was able to be on a solo time trial, this horse was on his own time trial, but he had to work for the lead. And what that meant was that in going harder early on, his final time wasn't quite as good as the filly, who posted a good one. He came home in a time that was just a little bit slower than the filly, 1:42.5, and the filly was 1:42.24. That's courtesy of the fact that he had to work hard. I don't think it necessarily means that the filly would beat Corniche if they were to meet, because she might not have been able to do what she did if she'd had to work as hard as he did in the early stages. So it would be an interesting matchup between the two if they were ever to meet. Very unlikely, one would have thought. He was pressured as well coming into the straight, unlike the filly Echo Zulu. She was clear turning in, and she was able to ease down in the closing stages, whereas Mike Smith had to work pretty hard to see off his rivals in the closing stages. Corniche responding all the way to the line. He posted a Bayer speed figure of 91. Now that's not his career best. His career best came on his debut here at Del Mar. This was over 1.5 miles a furlong. His debut was over 5.5 furlongs, and he managed to post a Bayer figure then of 98, which tells you that he's a pretty quick horse. His best figure sprinting thus far in his career, but he clearly stays 1.5 miles a furlong, and Baffert will surely be pointing this fellow at the Triple Crown next year. The Kentucky Derby would be the race for Corniche. The problem is Baffert can't have runners at Churchill Downs, so the owner of Corniche has a decision to make as to what he's going to do with Corniche if he wants this horse to turn up at Kentucky and run in the big one. I'm not sure that he might be leaving the Baffert barn. That's all to unfold. For the moment, we know he's probably the best dirt colt around at this time of year. He found plenty for pressure. He's by Quality Road. And Quality Road gets horses who stay 1.25 miles, so he'll stay the Kentucky Derby trip. And we know from that debut effort over 5.5 furlongs that he's got tremendous early pace to get himself a good early position, which is vital in dirt races. And once again, you can see them staying away from that rail. So how do we sum up what Corniche achieved out there? I think it was a really good performance. He had to work a little bit harder than Echo Zulu in the early part of the race, but he came home pretty strongly nonetheless, and his final time was not too bad compared to the filly. 1:42.5. It's slower than Echo Zulu, but he ran harder in the early part, and I think he's just as good as the filly. 91 is Bayer figure, not his best. He's got a 98. It's here at Del Mar. That's over 5.5 furlongs. That just tells us that he is a quick horse. That's how he established his lead early on. Bob Baffert was under intense scrutiny. He's found a Breeders' Cup winner despite that scrutiny, and it now is interesting to see what happens to Corniche as far as the Kentucky Derby is concerned. And, well, prep races for the Kentucky Derby next year, one would have thought that'll be what they will be aiming him at. Santa Anita Derby might be somewhere that he'll go. Baffert favours that race. He likes to run a lot of his good horses there, and whether he runs in that and then moves to a different yard, who knows, so that he can go to Churchill Downs, or maybe the authorities at Churchill Downs will change their minds about Baffert having runners there. And finally, Echo Zulu emerges as just the best of these two dirt juveniles. The final time was just a little bit better, her Bayer figure a little bit better as well, but not much between them. And one thing is for sure, they're both very useful indeed. The best dirt 2-year-olds around at the moment. Moving on to Saturday now, and to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint over 5 furlongs. Golden Pal, the 5-2 favourite for the Wesley Ward team. Lieutenant Dan, 4-1. Emirati Anna, the best of the Europeans, according to the market at least, was 9-2. Gear Jockey, 17-2. Kimari, 9s and 10s. Glass Slippers, who won this race last year at Keeneland, over half a furlong further. This is a quick 5 furlongs on firm ground, and we saw a sensational performance from Golden Pal, who makes every yard of the running here and simply blitzes his rivals to beat Lieutenant Dan into second place. He was quite well berthed, as was Charmaine's Mia. Watch him out of the gates. He's there and clear already. Golden Pal, he's got blinding early pace, and he sustains this all the way to the line. Now, he was disappointing when he came to the UK for the Nunthorpe. He was well beaten there, and he'd been beaten at Ascot by the Lear Jet as well as a 2-year-old. Both of those over the straight tracks. Here, round a bend, he was absolutely sensational. And his final time, well, it's jaw-dropping really. 55.22 seconds. This horse has flown home in. And if I just stop it there. Look, these are sprinters. And look how well spread out they are. Some of those in behind, they're not slow. They are really good horses in behind, fast horses. And he's got them strung out like 3-mile chasers. This is a fantastic performance. And he never looked like being caught. Best of the Euros, Emirati Anna, who's in 3rd place at this stage, running a huge race, won the Sprint Cup at Haydock, of course, beating Starman. But he's 6-7 lengths behind Golden Pal, who's well clear of the runner-up, who in turn is miles clear of the rest. It was a tremendous performance, and Wesley Ward was absolutely delighted afterwards, and no wonder. He really has got this horse firing on all cylinders, and all roads will lead back to Royal Ascot now for Golden Pal. Seen there pulling up. Indeed, he took a while to pull up after the line. I was so impressed with him. It's just about the best turf performance that we saw over the weekend, perhaps rivaled by Yibir's win in the turf, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later on. But this was just superb from him. Blistering fractions, we should mention them. 22.25 he went through the first call. The second call, 43.91 for that sensational final time that I highlighted of 55.22. Not only has he got fantastic early pace, he can sustain it all the way to the line. The only question that remains for him is, can he do it on a straight course when he comes back to the UK? So, superb front-running performance from Wesley Ward's colt. You won't see a better sprinting performance, I don't think, for a long time. The final time was absolutely sensational. Let's highlight those fractions as well that he set, because nothing could live with him. 22.45 to the first quarter, 43.91 then. Wow, as he blitzed through 4 furlongs, and then he's come home in 55.22 at final furlong, around about the 11-second mark, even though he'd gone so hard early on. He's best when going around a bend. Well, it just seems that way at the moment. He's beaten twice in the UK on a straight track. I think he's defeated in the Nunthorpe. He just went far too hard early on, and then got tired and weakened right out of it. Things just didn't work out for him there. But I'm sure that next season he will be effective on a straight course, and it's back to Royal Ascot for him, I think. UK Raiders, how did they get on? Emirati Anna in 4th place. A good run from this horse for Kevin Ryan. Glass Slippers found everything happening a bit quick, was a bit slow out of the gates. 5.5 furlongs when Glass Slippers won this race last year, and it was all too much really on fast ground over this trip on a sharp track. Finished 8th though, and is now retired after a tremendous career for Kevin Ryan team. Case of You, who was an Irish raider here and probably wants a bit of dig in the ground. Didn't run too badly actually, but we'll head to Hong Kong now. He's going to go and race over there in a bold bid to back up his Prix de l'Abbé success at Longchamp. Finally then, it's going to be Royal Ascot. Wesley Ward said as much afterwards. That's where Golden Pal will go, and his career now will just be dictated by that. He'll probably have a couple of prep runs, and then it will be Royal Ascot thereafter. Golden Pal, sensational sprinter. We're now going to turn our attentions to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, Grade 1, and we are about to witness a horse who is destined to become a global superstar. Indeed, he could become the best dirt horse that we have seen for a long time. The name, Life is Good, who went off the 4 to 6 favourite, Silver State 7 to 2, Juvenile 7 to 2, and it was 25 to 1, and bigger the rest. This horse is different gear. He is a dirt machine, and watch what he does out there. This was Saturday night, and he jumped from stall 5, and he got the better of Ginobili, who came out of 3, and third home was Restrained Vengeance, but we don't need to worry about them. This horse, we need to give you a little bit of history about him. He used to be with Bob Baffert. Bob was targeting him at the Triple Crown. He wanted to run him in the Kentucky Derby. That's where he was going to go, but he got a hind leg injury and was unable to run in the Triple Crown. Then, with all the trouble that Bob Baffert has encountered, this horse was moved and went to the Todd Pletcher yard, and Todd saddled him here, and Irad Ortiz Jr., the leading rider in the United States of America, was the man on board. Why was this fella so good? Well, his final time was spectacular, 1:34.12 for the mile. He dominated from stall 5, but not only did he dominate, he went sprinting fractions in the early part of this race. The first 6 furlongs, 1 minute 8.76. The Breeders' Cup sprint on dirt was 1 minute 8.49. Those sprinters going as fast as they could to record 1:8.49, yet he goes a mile and he records 1:8.76 for the first 6 furlongs. So he has gone 6 furlong pace, but he's kept going all the way to the line. And not only has he kept going under Ortiz, but he's eased down in the closing stages. That's how good he is. I have no doubt whatsoever that if he'd been all right and not had a hind leg injury, he would have torn the Kentucky Derby to pieces. He would have won it as he liked. So good is he that Connections considered the Breeders' Cup Classic for him this year, but they decided to go for this instead. A sensible move, I think, in the development of this horse, who's only had 8 career starts, and now they can look to take him worldwide. They're thinking about the Pegasus in the United States of America. They're thinking about the Saudi Cup. They're thinking about the Dubai World Cup. And they're also thinking about the Breeders' Cup Classic next year. Asmussen, when interviewed afterwards, mentioned all of those races. Rarely do you get a trainer, when he's seen his horse win, say, well, he's that good, I'm thinking about these races immediately. And the clock says he's not just good, he's brilliant, this horse. He is absolutely superb. And he has torn this mile apart. Knicks Go won the race last year. He's a tremendous racehorse, Knicks Go. We'll see him later on in the Breeders' Cup Classic. But this fella, he could be even better than Knicks Go. Look at Ortiz hushing the crowd, because he's telling them that they have witnessed something very special indeed. Now, of course, the Classic is the best race on dirt at the Breeders' Cup. It produced a very interesting result, which we'll come to. But this was the performance on dirt of the Breeders' Cup without a shadow of a doubt. He is a superstar. He was spectacular. He's a brilliant dirt horse. He was eased down to do 1:34.12. What else can we say about him? Well, if he hadn't suffered an injury, he surely would have won the Kentucky Derby. Apparently they found a shadow on his hind leg when x-rayed, and they decided to go softly with him. What a sensible decision that was in light of what he achieved on Saturday night. World is his oyster. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Pegasus, Saudi Cup, Dubai World Cup, Breeders' Cup Classic, they're all mentioned afterwards. Of course, his career is going to have to be carefully managed. You probably can't go and win all of those and take them all in even, but I'm sure Steve Asmussen will have a plan around those races. On the clock, it was absolutely stunning effort. It really was. I mentioned the 6 furlongs that he went through. The first 6 furlongs, 1:8.76. The Breeders' Cup Sprint, that was on dirt, 1:8.49. And they were flat out to do that. He did 1:8.76, and then he kept rolling. and pulled further and further clear of his rivals. We have witnessed a superstar strutty stuff at Del Mar for Steve Asmussen. Make absolutely no bones about that. I think he's one of the best horses that I've seen on dirt for a very long time. Oh dear, Bob. It'd be very tough for him to take, won't it, this one? I know he had a winner with Corniche. We've had a look at Corniche earlier on, but to see Life is Good do what he did there, I'm sure that Bob felt just a little bit sick seeing that horse win as he did. It was a superb performance, and Steve Asmussen, well, he was the beneficiary of everything that's gone on in the States in the last few months. From the mile on the dirt to the mile on turf, and it was Charlie Appleby and William Buick who were responsible for the favourite, Space Blues, who was 15-8. Mo Forza, the leading American contender, was 3-1. Smooth Like Straight took some support, 8-1 from 10s. Mother Earth, the 1,000 guineas winner, was 8-1. In Love, 9s and 18s, and bigger the rest. Interesting race that was won by Charlie Appleby and William Buick, who had a tremendous Breeders' Cup with the 3 winners in total. And Space Blues won this very well indeed. Let's take it from the start. He beat Smooth Like Straight, who was well backed, and he beat Ivar, who did tremendously well. Because see where he is. He's right out wide in stall 12, but the first 2 home were drawn low. And I always say that if a horse in any race gets a perfect trip and wins, you either sell him immediately, because he'll never get that trip again, or you retire him. And this horse, Space Blues, got the perfect trip. It was absolutely ideal. And indeed he has been retired by Sheikh Mohammed, Godolphin and Charlie Appleby. We won't see him race again, but he goes out on a high. There he is, tracking the pace, tucked in, a perfect sit in third, and able to attack when William Buick wants to do so. There'd been some trouble out the back. Mo Forza and Mother Earth both got murdered at the start. They got cut up and they never got involved thereafter. Space Blues, all he's got to do is get the trip. That was the big worry, because he's never really been a miler. He's been a 7 furlong specialist all of his career. So the worry for William Buick here was, would he get the trip? And what William wanted to do was delay his efforts for as long as he could to enable him to get home. But he was aided by the pace, which was not furious. They might look strung out, but they didn't go that mad out in front. It was steadily run. We know that from these fractions. 23.51 the first quarter mile, and then the first 4 furlongs, 47.38. They were not going mad out there at all. And now William can angle out. Look, he doesn't want to go for him completely yet. He's just nudging him. He's trying to save as much fuel as he can to see out this mile. The steadily run race has helped him. The fantastic trip round the inside has aided him as well. And in the end, he just sees it out well enough to beat Smooth Like Straight, who'd always been prominent. And we would say that Ivar was the eye catcher from that wide gate, coming home strongly, having had to circle round the field. But Space Blues, everything was aligned for him to win. The steady gallop, the perfect trip from a low draw, and William Buick just timing his challenge to perfection. You see there, once he gets to Smooth Like Straight, he's not pulling clear. Smooth Like Straight's just staying with him. He's just running out of gas a little bit, but he was done enough to win this and win it in a reasonable final time. It was nothing flash because of the steadyish gallop early on, but that really helped Space Blues. And Charlie Appleby, well, he's got a fantastic record in North America. He strikes at in the last few years at over 40%, so that's absolutely tremendous. And this horse provided him with his second winner up to this point at the Breeders' Cup 2021. Second winner then for him. He's a world-class trainer, and perhaps it would be better to call him the best trainer in the world at the moment. I think the Thoroughbred rankings would definitely say that. He got an amazing stalking trip. It was just absolutely perfect. If you'd sat William Buick down and said, look, how do you want to ride this horse? Where do you want to be in the race? How do you want it to pan out? Well, that's exactly what he would have wanted. Sit third, for steady gallop, angle out in the straight, challenge when you want to, win 3/4 of a length. Perfect. I thought he did delay his challenge. He could have really gone for him, really attacked him, turning for home off that gallop, but he just waited. He just sat and waited. It was almost that sort of count to 10 moment from Buick as he turned into the home straight before he asked him to go. First two were drawn 2 and 1, and therefore Ivar's done very well from his wide gate, running on in the closing stages. But the inside draw definitely helped the first two home. Steady gallop, it definitely helped him get the trip, I'm sure of that. I mean, he has won well at a mile before, earlier in his career, but by and large he's a 7 furlong specialist, but everything worked out this time for him to win at a mile. Well done to Space Blues. He's been a grand servant to Charlie Appleby and the team. He goes out on a real high. He is now retired after that fantastic success in the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. Time now to have a look at the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf. 1.5 miles was the trip, and it was felt that this was a very good chance for a European winner, probably courtesy of Tanawa, who was the favourite at 7 to 4. Walton Street was well supported, trained by Charlie Appleby. It was a 9 to 2 shot. Gufo 7s from 12s. Yibir, another Charlie Appleby runner, 17 to 2. And Tiona was quietly fancied by the Roger Varian teams, a 9 to 1 shot. There were runners for Aidan O'Brien as well. Japan, Bolshoi Ballet and Broome also. They were all at bigger prices. We'll witness something amazing here in this Breeders' Cup Turf. Let's highlight where they came from. And it was Yibir who wins for Charlie Appleby and William Buick, and does so in tremendous fashion. Got the better of Broome. Watch the start here, and you'll see that there's quite a few horses gunning for the lead. Channel Maker being one of them. Acclimate was up there as well. And they went very hard in the early stages. Now, the thing to focus on is Yibir. He's in here. As I pause it there, you can see his head's up in the air just a little bit. And that's because he was very keen. He was pulling William Buick's arms out in the early part of this race. William was really struggling to get him to settle. And therefore, it is amazing that he was able to do what he does in the home straight, for surely he will be out of gas. Look at him pulling there, pulling and reefing his head from side to side. He will not drop the bit at all. He will not settle. And perhaps this was just a sign of a horse who's in tremendous nick at the moment. You remember he won at York. And, he won here in the United States of America last time up as well under Jamie Spencer, who dropped him out and came with a late run. Well, here you'd think he's not going to have any gas left in the closing stages, but boy does he. And he comes home to win in this time. He wins in 2:25.9, setting a new course record over 1.5 miles on the turf. And that was courtesy of him being held up in a very strongly run race. They went really hard. Let's highlight where the first 4 are after 1/4 mile going to the half-mile pole. The first 4 were 12th, 10th, 8th and 6th. They were all out the back basically, and they all came charging and posted that really good final time. The pace collapsed just prior to turning in, and then the closers came calling. Now, amongst those closers, you'd have thought Tanawa would have been involved, for she was held up. She's just tucked in. We'll just go past the trees, and she's tucked in towards the rear, and she's just being niggled along. There she is in the Aga Khan silks, the green silks, and she's got Yibir just behind. He's only got one behind him at the moment. But Tanawa doesn't make much progress really. Despite Colin Keane's urgings, she can't go round the field, and I think she was probably saying that she's had enough for the season really. She ran a big race in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, a big race in the Irish Champions Stakes, and I think that's probably taking it out of her. Now Yibir begins to make a little bit of headway. He's tracking Tanawa around, and even William Buick said, when interviewed afterwards, he said, I was going to ask him for his effort turning in, but I thought there'd be nothing there because he pulled so hard early on. I didn't think there'd be much in the tank. Broome strikes for home in the white cap. A big race from Broome, who normally front runs or is ridden prominently, held up this time. That really helped him. It looks like he's going to go and win. But here comes Yibir, and look at the stride on him. He's grabbing the ground down the outside. This is a short run-in. He's come from second last to first in about 1.5 furlongs. He's absolutely flown home to record that course record time. Clearly a career best from him, and I think he surprised everybody really. I was in the studio with George Baker and Tom Stanley, and we were all saying at the time, well, he's pulling too hard. He's never going to get home pulling that hard. He's too far back. Oh, no, he wasn't. He was exactly where you wanted to be in a very strongly run race, and he's progressing at a rate of knots, this horse. Amazing effort from him to finish so strongly. And the way he grabbed the ground in the home straight and that big long stride of his was most eye-catching. What else can we say about it? The fast pace did collapse. Tribhuvan, Climate, Channel Maker, they all went on quite hard in the early stages, and all of those horses involved at the death came from some way back. Quarter mile, the first four home, 12th, 10th, 8th and 6th, and they weren't close up in 12th, 10th, 8th and 6th. They were 10, 12 lengths off the pace. 3 Breeders' Cup winners in 2021 for Appleby and Dubuque. They did have a couple of horses withdrawn at the start for playing up in the stalls. Both of those races they won with the other horse that they saddled. A fantastic meeting for them. Tanawa, disappointing, wasn't she? There's no doubt about that. I thought she raced as if that's it. Enough is enough for the season. She was well positioned the way the race went. She was just where Tiona and Broome and indeed Yibir were through the race, but she couldn't make any progress in the manner that they did. Second winner on the night for Dubawi. After Space Blues' success in the Turf Mile, Dubawi, he's a multi-surface top-class stallion, and he is part of the reason that Charlie Appleby has been propelled to the top of the training ranks worldwide, for he has many Dubawis to deal with. At 12:40 on Sunday morning, the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic took place at the big race of the whole meeting, with $6 million up for grabs in prize money. A mile and a quarter on dirt and Essential Quality, the favourite, at 7-4 for the Godolphin operation. He's a horse who'd won the Belmont Stakes over a mile and a half. Hot Rod Charlie, 11-4, 7-2 Knicks Go, 15-2 the Kentucky Derby winner, Medina Spirit, and it was 12-1 and bigger the rest. On paper, at least, this looked to be one of the best Breeders' Cup Classics that we have witnessed for many a year, and it turned out to be a fascinating race tactically. It went to Knicks Go. He made every yard of the running under the brilliant Joel Rosario, and he did it in good style here, but it was not run necessarily how normal Breeders' Cup Classics are run. Here he is, the grey horse, immediately taken to the front by Rosario, and he gets an easy lead. Who would have thought that in a Breeders' Cup Classic with lots of pace signed on, the likes of Hot Rod Charlie, Medina Spirit, horses that generally go forward and like to make the running, would be taken back and allow him to just do what he wanted on the front end? There was a big doubt about whether he would get 10 furlongs. He's never won at the 10 furlong trip before in his career. Indeed, last year he won the Breeders' Cup Mile at Keeneland. He is essentially a miler, but he was allowed his own way out in front here, and because of that he got the trip absolutely fine and just dictated matters. Now 23.16, 45.77 and 1:10.04 just saw him moseying along out there on a solo time trial. You could call him the winner right now, looking at the fractions as they clicked up on the screen as we went through the race. Nothing was going to be able to close in on him, for he's a fast horse. He's got loads of pace. All he had to do was kick in the straight, and even if he didn't quite see out 10 furlongs, he'd have gained enough of an advantage to hang on. And that's exactly what happens. Rosario, once again, you'll see in the home straight, anxious to stay miles away from that inside rail. Look at Essential Quality, Godolphin Blue, horse 4, the grey, being niggled along here. He wants a mile and a half, really. He's a tough hombre. He really is a very tough horse, but he wants a mile and a half. That's the trip that he won the Belmont over, where he beat Hot Rod Charlie. Hot Rod Charlie ran okay here. The mystery of the race is Medina Spirit, who made every yard of the running to win the Kentucky Derby, but they've changed the tactics. Johnny Velasquez and Bob Baffert decided to ride him chilly, ride him a bit more patiently. Well, that didn't suit him, but what it meant was that it allowed Knicks Go to get his own way out in front. And because he could get his own way, he's produced a fabulous final time, because he's just run evenly out front. He's just jogged along evenly. And if you can click over 10, 12 second furlongs over a mile and a quarter on dirt, getting to a time of 2 minutes, you're a very good horse. And he's got under 2 minutes, 1:59.57. Finding enough in the home straight, nothing getting anywhere near him because they've just given him an easy time out in front. And he runs out a ready enough win. You see Essential Quality running on in the closing stages and Medina Spirit, but Knicks Go was away and gone. Look how wide he is as well, Rosario. Very keen to stay away from that rail. So we had a very fast time for the Breeders' Cup Classic, courtesy of Knicks Go being afforded simply a solo time trial out there. He's never won a race in his career when he's had to pass a horse. He's never passed a horse to win a race, this fella. But when he gets his own way out in front, he is lethal. He's very dangerous when he gets his own way. Remember in the Saudi Cup, he didn't get his own way. He got taken on there and he weakened out of it. If he gets taken on, he can curl up a bit. Boy, he didn't curl up this time. Look at that. Solo time trial. Those figures tell you 23.16, 45.77 and 1:10.04. You would have expected quicker in a Breeders' Cup Classic. The trip was a concern coming in for connections and pundits alike, but under this particular pace scenario, it wasn't going to be a problem. If he was going to be allowed to get loose on the lead, he was going to be a big danger, and that's what happened. Joe Rosario kept him away from the inside rail. If you look at the daily racing form and look at what people say there, they say that he was eased into the forepath throughout. To Rosario, keen to get as wide as he could down the home straight. Medina Spirit ridden more patiently than usual. That was a surprise. You thought the Medina Spirit was going to go forward. He made all in the Kentucky Derby, so you'd think he'd go forward and at least press the pace, if not try and make the lead. But they decided to do otherwise. They wanted to ride him in a different way. They thought that would suit him, but ironically, what it did was just hand the race to Knicks Go. Life is Good. I'm going back to that superstar. He boasts an 8-length demolition of Medina Spirit on his CV. So when he was being prepared for the Kentucky Derby, he thrashed Medina Spirit by 8 lengths. Medina went on to win the Kentucky Derby, and Medina Spirit here was second in the Classic to Knicks Go. That's how good Life is Good is. Bizarrely, the Breeders' Cup Classic franking what he did earlier in the card. You let Knicks Go dictate, and he will destroy you in any race. From a mile to a mile and a quarter now. We think he just about gets the trip, doesn't he? That is evidence. If he can go under 2 minutes, he just about does get the trip over 10 furlongs. A good winner of the Classic, and a nice horse going forward. They might consider something like the Dubai World Cup now for Knicks Go. So we enjoyed a tremendous Breeders' Cup. It was hard to pick out the 7 races. I could have focused on the Japanese success. They had a couple of winners, one ridden by Oisin Murphy, and we should congratulate them on that. It was a big news story for them to win a couple of races on the card, one on the dirt and one on the turf. But overall, the dirt star really, I think, was Life is Good, despite a really good Breeders' Cup Classic. He's a horse to take with you going forward, and Golden Pal and Yibir were fantastic on the turf. The meeting was brilliant, and I hope you enjoyed it all with us here on Racing TV.